Oh, the twisted sisters of bitterness and blame. Oh my goodness. I will be the first to admit that raising my hand and being like, yeah, I'm bitter, that's not exactly something I want to sign up for. But if you're a little bit salty and you speak in sarcasm, this episode, my friend, is for you. Hi, y'all. My name is Jess Devine. I am a knowledge juicer, everything coach, ADHD, autism, yeah, all the things. I've got all the things. And I'm also the founder of the Soul Crew community. Welcome to the Soul Crew podcast, where every week I come to you with the topic of the week that we're discussing in our live Zooms, and then we embody in our Thursday prayers and portals. So it's going to be tons of fun because this week is all about bitterness, which is a really what sets you free. And actually, I think it's going to be the next 4 to 6 weeks because I've had some pretty intense realizations lately. One, that my life's work has been all around bitterness. And yet, because I was sitting in bitterness myself, I was not seeing the forest for the trees. So the last few weeks have really been gut wrenching and freeing for me because I was able to see what I was sitting in, who I was, and really have a good, honest look at myself and then dive deep into my own tools to help me be free of the bitterness. And now I'm wanting to just share with you the process that I've taken myself through time and time again over the last 25 years and really just shine a light on this infection, this parasite that feeds on our worthiness root that leads to lack and despair and hopelessness. So come along, my friend. Bitterness shows itself as blame. There's something or someone or a system outside of ourselves causing my life to be shitty. So it's the finger pointing. It's saying there's something out there that is causing this within me. And we all know that what we're responsible for and what we're not responsible for, but it gets confusing and it's convoluted. Yeah, especially because humans, we love to hold a grudge. We love to hold a grudge against people and systems, and then even more so to align with other people who hold the same grudge. Like movements, politics are all about this. It's throwing stones at the enemy. It's used for attracting your tribe. It's used all over in marketing, but it's also the conflict that our world is created on, is holding that grudge and pointing fingers at other people. Bitterness worn on the outside really just makes you angry. And then sometimes we even identify as an asshole, which is what causes other people, more assholes, to be attracted to us. And you see the pain etched in the faces, even when you're young. Like you can see the bitterness and how it manifests in our bodies when we let it out. It's the angry creases, it's the accusations. And it's especially difficult when you feel like you have the right to be angry. And sometimes we do have the right to be angry because what's happened to us, like, is a problem. And so it's like, where are those lines? But the problem is that when you live in that blame, you end up miserable and many times alone or with friends and in community that is hurtful and it doesn't uplift in the way that you desire. So, on this transformation journey, it's so important to look at bitterness and blame and resentment and envy, and because there's nuances with each of them. So, as we go into this, I want to encourage you to feel into that anger, begin to process the pain and release it so you do not have to continue carrying that burden. And I know it's easier said than done. That's why this is going to be a series for a little bit because it's really fun on the other side. There is amazing freedom on the other side of releasing the bitterness and blame. Just takes a little bit of a journey to get there. So, guilt is what we feel when we have hurt someone and we know we've done wrong. Shame is when we identify and believe that we are that way, that we are that person. And bitterness is what we feel when we've been hurt by someone else. So let me break this down a little bit easier because sometimes it's easy when you hear it. So shame says, I am a fuck up. Shame identifies, I am a fuck up. Guilt says, I fucked up. It says, yeah, I did a thing and I see that it wasn't good and I did it and it's okay. Like, we're going to fix it and we make the change. Guilt is a healthy feeling because we all fuck up. We human all over the place. And so when we feel guilt, that's our indication to make a change and to change something. But bitterness says you fucked up. You fucked up on something and it hurts. Now, here's the thing. The closer the relationship, the more likely the bitterness, the guilt, and the shame. Because all of our relationships are like buckets. And you can only carry so many buckets at a time. Like, you can line these buckets up your arms and you're carrying these buckets. Now, why are some buckets heavier than other buckets? It's what we put into the bucket. If you ever felt like a relationship was like death by 1,000 paper cuts, it's because you're putting little bits of death, or I call them pebbles, into that bucket of that relationship. And as you carry it around, it's really heavy. And eventually you may decide to just put the bucket down. You're not going to continue the relationship because it's too heavy. The burden's too much. You don't want to carry it anymore. There's too much pain. But what we put into these buckets of relationship is entirely up to us. We could put feathers in there. Feathers are light and fluffy and they're fun. It's love. But those pebbles, the little things that hurt and they build up over time, that's where it gets really painful. So what you put into the bucket of your relationship is super duper important. And pay attention to those things. Bitterness is based on the relationship. The more you know about a person, the more that you get to know them, the more we have a tendency to judge them. So releasing bitterness, releasing the blame around the people that you're in the closest relationship with, and I'm talking like your partner, your children, your parents, the people who are in your family, it's a continual process to remove those pebbles from your bucket because that blame over time turns into this bitterness and resentment. And we don't want that because that's where the relationships simply get too heavy to carry. It's about navigating the boundaries and having clear communication. Bitterness is like a parasite and it needs a host. It needs you. And that host is your worthiness root. The root that is deep inside of you that dictates what you have and what you don't have, that dictates the quality of your lifestyle. That worthiness root is the deepest and most significant root in your life. It is what connects you to all creation. It is your soul. It is your spirit. It is the essence of you. It is knowing your worthiness. And when the parasite of bitterness attaches to it, it grows. And it grows and it will either be visible in your fruit, in your behaviors, or you will hold on to it and you will shove it deep inside. And it turns into illness. Turns up in your body. Your body keeps all of the score. It remembers everything. And so when it attaches to those beliefs and it affects your worthiness, causes this lack and despair. Now, to the contrary, forgiveness or freedom forgets the details. And we struggle recounting the things that are said. We struggle recounting the arguments. Like, you just kind of forget. Have you ever had something that really bothered you and you remembered it over and over and over again and you paid attention to every detail? That is bitterness. Because when forgiveness, when freedom truly sets in, you forget those details. They naturally just go away. And you see the story in an entirely different light. Bitterness causes us to hold on to the pain. It speaks in the language of right and wrong, good and bad. These are the words of bitterness, the beliefs of bitterness. Now, I truly believe that as long as a person is breathing, they have the opportunity to heal. I also know that there are lots of people who fill our cemeteries who took blame and bitterness to the grave. This is a bonus level for life. You truly do not have to address this. You don't have to do anything, but it deeply affects the quality of your life. It affects your joy. Bitterness affects your happiness, your money, your relationships. It impacts every aspect of the quality of your life. And revenge, it doesn't solve the problem. In fact, it only makes it worse. If you put 1 drop of vinegar in a gallon of milk, it will sour the entire gallon. That's why bitterness is sour. It tastes bad in your mouth. When you feel the blame, when you feel the accusing nature, it tastes bad. That's your indicator that you have a parasite on your worthiness root. It is not good or bad. It is simply a thing that needs to be addressed. It's just an indicator that there's more healing to be done, and that's okay. It's okay. You're human. You're remarkably human. And I know many times the first indicator is be like, oh, I need to go apologize. I need to go do this. Not necessarily. Just pause for a minute because odds are the problem is twofold. You may be really upset about not having your needs met, even though you have repeatedly said what you want. And they, whoever they may be, probably have no clue what you actually meant. And so it's multiple problems. It's not just one problem because it's a communication problem. And communication is the biggest barrier in relationships. Forgiveness or freedom, it's truly not based on their response. What happened if the person who you're bitter towards is no longer living? It's not about their response to you. It's how you live. It's the quality of your life. Forgiveness, freedom is not about them. It's only about you. It's about how do you want to live? What do you want to carry with you? Do you want to carry the pain and the burden with you, or do you want to release it? No more can they impact your life. You've given them enough. And the truth is that love always wins. Love is the only solution. Love for yourself, love for others, love for the world that can seem so fucked up. And yet when you see it the other direction, when you see it a different way, it's amazing how your life can be transformed. I think so many times we have a weak and passive understanding of love. Love is not weak. Love is not a doormat. Love does not coddle. Love is strong like the wind. It is powerful like the crashing waves. Love is nurturing like the earth under our feet. And it's passionate like a roaring fire on a chilly night. Love keeps no record of wrongs. When we stand in our love, we stand in the authority and the power of all we are, of the oneness of all creation, where there is no right or wrong and there is no good or bad. There was one time where I was flying out of PDX, the airport in Portland, Oregon. It was an absolutely dreary Northwest day. And even though it was midday, the skies were like really dark and the clouds were leaking. It was raining like crazy. It was not an ideal day for a flight. To be expected, there was turbulence on takeoff. It was jarring. But as soon as we popped through those clouds, the sky was so magnificent and blue. The sun was shining bright, and below us were these like cotton ball fluffy clouds. They were just so beautiful. And I realized in that moment that I was looking at the same exact situation from a different perspective. On one side, the clouds were oppressive and dark. And on the other side of the same clouds, there was sunshine and giggles. When we sit in resentment, which is really just anger, envy, bitterness, blame, we're only seeing one side of the clouds. With added perspective, we can see not just silver lining, but we can see the joyful bliss of a new and deeper understanding. And understanding the wholeness of a story, of a situation, is what grants us freedom, what grants forgiveness, because it allows us to see a bigger picture. One of my favorite analogies for explaining perspectives is using a dice. Like, I can look at this dice and I'm looking at it and I see that it's a 4. And if you're looking at it, you're going to say, no, 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 it's a 3. And I'm going to say, no, it's a 4. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm holding a dice in my hand and I'm looking at it. And on my side, it's a 4. On the camera's side, it's a 3. And we could argue, we could swear on anything that we are seeing it accurately, and we are. Both of us. Seeing the same exact object, seeing the same situation, and a completely different perspective. I see a 4, you see a 3. This is the problem that we have in arguments. This is a problem that we have in conflict. Until we're able to stop and get really curious about why I'm seeing it as a 4 and you're seeing it as a 3, and I get curious about your perspective as a 3, that is where freedom exists. That is where forgiveness happens. It's because I need to come outside of myself and quit being defensive and look at the other sides, look at the other perspectives, and then I can see that not only does the 3 and 4 exist, there is a 1, 2, 5, and 6 that also exist. There's lots of different perspectives to the same story. When we get curious and we see other people's perspectives, everything radically changes. Now, when we get stubborn and we see the dice, we see the situation from only our perspective, that judgment causes harm to everyone. And judgment affects everyone in our relationships, everyone around us. It doesn't just impact the one that we're having conflict with, it impacts everybody else in the situation and all around us because our feelings are contagious. How we feel, how we think impacts people around us. Now, you can lie to everyone else, but you cannot lie to yourself. Because when you lie to yourself and you lie to your body, it manifests in the form of illness. I want you to sit in that for a minute. Because when you lie to everyone else and you lie to yourself and you allow yourself to sit in denial or deceit, it manifests in your body in a form of illness. That illness, that ailment, will show you exactly what you need to work on. But you don't have to let it get that far because the indications are in your language. The indications are in what you say. That's where your subconscious just manifests in every part of your life. It comes out through and through. And if you listen to the language, you don't have to wait for the illness. If you wait too long, the illness happens and then you have to chase it backwards. And it's okay. There is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. There is simply awareness, understanding, and growth. Freedom, forgiveness, the release of that pain, judgment, bitterness, it will all go away. It will be released instantly when you completely surrender to your truth. It is a radical transformation. It happens immediately. I looked for many years to figure out what the nuances were. What were the commonalities among people who accepted Christ and had immediate forgiveness, like within Christianity, had a spiritual awakening within spiritual woo circles. What are the commonalities where they had a radical transformation and were something entirely different? There are instances of radical transformation in every religion. And I was like, what are the commonalities that make that exist? And I came up with one answer, and it is surrender. It is surrendering to what is, forgiving other people, forgiving yourself, and living within the freedom. It is surrender. When you get real with yourself and release the pain and the shame of the judgments you have been holding on to, everything changes instantly. But I want to give you a word of caution. Rather than using your mind to look for problems, I want you to assume your perfection. Assume your perfection right now. And as you exist in the nowness, in the newness of this moment, when you're existing in life and something comes up, just address it. You don't have to go looking for problems. When you assume your perfection and a problem happens, you have a hiccup in your giddy up, then you just easily address it. You don't have to look for the conflict. You don't have to look for the problems. Live your life. Walk in the glory and the grace and the ease of your life. And the moment you feel a twinge of discomfort, that is your signal to ask deeper questions. Your body is your roadmap. Learn to sit in yourself. We're going to talk more about this next week. And I want to leave you with a prayer of surrender, a prayer that I wrote this last week, laying on my floor in my own surrender. And as it poured from me, I realized there are patterns of communication with ourselves, with Source, Spirit, Creator, God, however you want to refer to the oneness of all beings. There are commonalities in prayers that allow for certain types of movement to shift within the supernatural world. And this has been my prayer. Oh, Source, I feel my bitterness. I feel my pain. And I do not want to hold a grudge against any person. I don't want to hold on to anger or judgment. And if you feel the need to say a specific name, do it. If there's someone in mind, say their name. Speak that truth. I'm sorry for the pain that I have caused them with my bitterness, with my judgment. I'm sorry for the pain that I have caused myself and our family. I'm sorry for the pain that I have allowed to eat at my spirit. I release my anger and my bitterness. I release my frustration and judgment. I release my resentment and envy. And I ask that you would open my eyes and help me see this person with their highest self, with my highest self. I choose to see them in pure love and understanding. Please continue to open my eyes to any resentment or bitterness that I have in my spirit. I commit to love. I commit to my highest self. I commit to seeing clearly and loving this person with my highest self, seeing their highest self. I speak power and love into our relationship. I speak authority and kindness. I remove any feelings of being a victim. I remove the judgment and the blame. I pour love and compassion and kindness into all the wounds. I stand in grace. I stand in freedom. I stand with open eyes. And I choose love. Thank you, my friend, for joining me today. If you know of someone who needs to hear this, would you please pass it along? Please share it with them. If this has helped you, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to comment or reach out. The Soul Crew community is always open to you. You may join us in living intentionally in community, encouraging and uplifting each other. Thank you so much for this time. And of all the places in the world, you chose to share this time with me. I am grateful. I love you, and I hope you have a magnificent day.